big topic came out today, big news story that we want to talk about. So I'm not nearly as well researched on this as I usually am when coming in, but today there was an incident in Gaza where a aid caravan entered Gaza. It was pretty immediately swarmed, as you would imagine, by Gazans who are hungry and starving. And the IDF soldiers, who I guess were on the other side, like I don't know exactly the logistics of this, but who were at the last military checkpoint that this caravan passed through, they feared for their life and opened fire on the crowd. And it's over 100 people, at least 100 people died in this. I don't know what the exact number was, but it was a tragedy because these are people just trying to get food who just were slaughtered. And the controversy, seemingly, was that Israel's claiming, oh, yeah, no, we fired in self-defense, but then it was the trampling that killed the hundreds of people. We might have only killed one, and Gaza was like, no, it was mostly the Gazans, or what whoever's coming out reporting there was saying, yeah, no, that it was actually mostly IDF shooting. And my question is, who gives a shit how exactly these people died? Because it's, at the end of the day, the responsibility of Israel. Like, they wouldn't be there starving and hungry and ravenous for this aid convoy if you weren't turning Gaza into a giant famine zone. Like none of the factors that led to this specific situation where they could be trampled would exist without the actions of Israel. It seems to me that, like, why even make that argument? Like, just say you shot them. Like, who is anyone really moved by the difference? I mean, probably, considering where we are, but I don't know,
Yeah.
TJ, what do you think?
No, so I don't think it would be. It's kind of like what we talked about with Destiny a few minutes ago, and when they mentioned like, well, they haven't bombed any hospitals. Well, yeah, they have. Do you think Destiny changed his mind after that? It's a charade.
Mhm.
And it reminds me, years ago, I remember I was talking to someone who said that they didn't plan to get the COVID vaccination because it wasn't FDA approved, and I said, okay, well, I mean, eventually it probably will be. Will you get it then? And thought for a second and went, no. I was okay, then why'd you bother saying that? Like why
Mhm.
bother with the misdirection? It doesn't even matter. And yeah, the thing with it's just so depressing. And it's 112 people. It's looked at 112 people, 750 wounded. That is what now. I don't know. Did you guys see the video that the IDF released of the drone footage? So they did these they said this video of the drone footage and it's, oh, look at all these people swarming. And like, okay, but exactly what John said. Well, why are they swarming? They're swarming for one of two reasons. One is they were shot at. That's what was reported by Al Jazeera and everything. Or two, they were swarming because they were starving people and there were food trucks there. In either case, the IDF is to blame. Like that you're
Mhm.
the reason that this human suffering has happened. So Jeremy, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean we hear atrocities like this happen like once a week, sometimes
Yeah.
more often, whether it's, they hit a hospital, they hit a school, and they always have some kind of pretext for it where it's like, I don't know, one person there knew a member of Hamas or something like that. And it's like, well, of course, Hamas is the goddamn government and the Gaza Strip. They're going to be everywhere, right? Um, but my stance is that whatever pretext they offer, it just doesn't matter because as John alluded to at the beginning, the reason that they're in this position to begin with is the IDF and the treatment of Palestinians broadly. None of this happens. I would argue Hamas doesn't even exist, or at least doesn't have the pretext necessary to do terror attacks. If Israel didn't treat Palestinians the way that they do. And so when we see, a humanitarian aid truck trying to make its way into Gaza, or a caravan, I should say, trying to make its way into Gaza. It's swarmed by hungry people, and then the IDF opens fire, and they try to offer some kind of pretext for it. We were scared, Hamas was there, whatever. It isn't surprising to me, especially because we know IDF forces are pretty undisciplined.
Mhm.
About a
You
month
don't
ago, maybe
say.
2 months ago, I think when they first started their invasion into Gaza, their ground invasion, some of the IDF members killed Israeli hostages because they thought they were Hamas, despite them saying, please don't shoot, speaking in Hebrew. We know the IDF isn't disciplined, and we know that they'll offer whatever pretext they can think up to justify the killing of civilians, the killing of innocent Palestinians. It's just another tragedy, and it's the downstream effect of all of Israel's actions. It's disgusting, it's upsetting, but it's what we expect at this point.
You bring up
Yeah,
a good
there's
point
also
there,
the fact.
Jeremy, of just why the fuck were they there to begin with? Like you know they're gonna swarm the fucking caravan because they're starving. So why the hell would you position your IDF soldiers anywhere close where they might fear for their life when that inevitably happens? Like all the way down, this is the IDF's
Yeah, well,
responsibility.
the more cynical answer is that's what they want.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
guess
yeah.
you could say, to be more charitable, that they're just incompetent. Either way, it's
To
their
be more
fault, right?
charitable, they're just incompetent. Is
Yeah. Either way, it's on them. They did this.
Well, there's
Gage, what
also
were you
the
saying?
fact that Israel gets ahead of every time they have a blunder, which seems to be literally every day. It's this whole conflict has been a blunder. They love to try and at least get ahead of it by saying like, "Oh, Hamas was there, Hamas was this," and even if like Jeremy said, yeah, Hamas is the government, like everyone's gonna know a member. It doesn't matter to Israel. They're claiming everything is Hamas. I think it was 2 or maybe 3 weeks ago, they said that United Nations aid workers were Hamas,
Yeah.
and that
Mhm.
maybe there were
UNRWA,
three of
yeah.
them that were connected. So that means that the entire over 1,000 member organization, thousands of member organizations, they're all connected with Hamas. They're all conspiring with terrorists. And also, of course, people are going to swarm the food van. Are you scared of a malnourished child? Or is a malnourished child going to throw a rock at you? That's been enough to justify the IDF going off and starting blasting before. Like, this is all just so fundamentally absurd.
There was a news story several years ago. I can't remember, maybe 10 years ago. And it was about an IDF captain, I think, and he shot a 13-year-old Palestinian girl. And
Mhm.
because she was, so terrifying. She was gonna overpower him and everything. And I remember reading the article about it, and he said, and they asked him if he felt bad about it. He said, "Listen, I would have shot her if she were a 3-year-old girl. Like that. That's the people we're dealing with here. Like we need to stop." And I'll look up his name while during the break, but we'll stop pretending that this is like. That's why it's so frustrating when you see. Well, first it's frustrating when you see like the report for this morning when I saw it. I'm sure you guys saw it, where CNN said that 100 Gazans killed in chaotic incident. It's like,
Yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
get the fuck out of here, and or hearing
Mhm.
John, when you talk about how it's referred to as the Israel Hamas war. That's not that this is not a war. When you
Mhm.
have 1,000 deaths on one side and 30,000 on one side, this isn't a war anymore. Like it never was. I mean, it's always just been an occupying force on a group of people with no power. And Jeremy, I think you were talking about how they refer to everybody as Hamas, and all the reports that come out will say that 66% of the people killed of the 30,000 people have been civil. Or no, they say that 66% have been women and children. That's what they say.
Yes. And
And that
they
one.
also,
Go ahead.
sorry, but just to add, they also do claim that 33% are Hamas.
Exactly. So yeah,
All the
Just
men.
the
all
33%
the
left
men.
over.
All the men they have killed have been Hamas. How about that? Because that shows that you're incredibly precise and incredibly imprecise at the same time, which you cannot be. And
Mhm.
so yeah, it's like the narratives of how this is just broadcast is infuriating.
I also have to point out something Gage and I have talked about a lot, how similar the IDF is to American police forces.
Oh yeah.
Of course,
Well,
they trained with the
Yeah.
yes.
NYPD,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
this isn't surprising. But the fact that they could like just say and get away with saying, "I felt scared, so I started blasting," is it's very American. Of course, it's disgusting, but it's exactly what police officers do in the U.S. Like even if the person that is scaring them or the group of people that's scaring them isn't a threat, they can just get away with blasting because they could have had a gun and my life felt threatened. So reasonably, I get to use force. It's just insane.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
yeah, when you mentioned that, Charity, yeah, I was so glad you do that because I was going to jump in and say that yeah, our police forces are trained, in the same manner as the IDF, and there's it's called killology. I'm not kidding. That's what it's called. It's called killology, and it's
Settling.
yeah, it's why whenever you see officers, they never fire one round. If you ever see like they always unload the entire clip. You're taught to do that. You were taught to
Mhm.
unload everything and make sure the guy is dead or no longer a threat or the threat is neutralized. And
Yeah.
I forget the name of the guy who goes around giving these killology speeches, but my unit, my army unit, my army unit, we were in an auditorium listening to this guy. And I remember him like first getting on stage and he made a bunch of jokes about how there's a bunch of queers in American Idol. I was like, what the fuck? What's going on? Like,
That's
some random thing he went
crazy.
to, whatever. But it was just that. It was just talking about how the sheepdog mentality things, a whole bunch of sheepdog stuff that, you know, the world is divided into sheep, sheepdogs, and wolves. And you
Wow.
find men and women are sheepdogs. Everyone else is a sheep. And they teach you to think of the entire world as a war zone. And so they always talk about how, you know, well, what do they say? They always would say better, you know, very judged by 12 than carried by 6. So, you know, if you kill somebody and you go to court for, you know, murder or something like that, hey, that's better than being dead. Fuck everybody else. Like, fuck the people you actually work for. Fuck actually protecting and serving. Fuck, you know, standing up and doing the right thing. You're not the one making the sacrifice. Everyone else is. Like, you have the gun, but for some reason, you're the one who should be the most scared. And that's exactly what they're doing in the IDF. It's like, yeah, they see the people of Palestine as less than human, and we see the that's reflected every single day in their actions.
And it's
Yeah, and
insane how that literal killology manifests in, I don't know, a cop being scared of an acorn dropping on the hood of his car,
Yeah.
and an IDF soldier being scared of a child who hasn't had a stable meal in 4 months. Like, let's be real. Let's be so for real right now.
They're such strong, powerful men that they sent a bomb on a 6-year-old girl who was surrounded by the corpses of her dead relatives when an ambulance approached them. Like, these are the men we're talking about here, and it's disgusting.
They choose
Also,
to live on edge. Like,
They do, yeah.
Oftentimes, American police and the IDF will say, like, well, if we weren't there, you know, how would people be protected? You know, protect and serve is a sort of mantra for police officers in America. But it's like, if it's possible for you to shoot and potentially kill an innocent person just because you're afraid, I'm not sure who you're protecting at that point.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like innocent people are being protected if they could die at your hands simply because you're intimidated.
It's something I've read recently. That I didn't realize I'd be making this connection until like this moment where we're talking about it here. And I read recently, it wasn't talking about anything, that it wasn't talking about police, wasn't talking about Gaza, wasn't talking about shit. But the point was making is that we too often idolize heroes. And that doesn't, you know, heroes deserve idolization. But so often the reason a hero is somewhere to begin with is because someone else didn't do their job. That we so often glamorize someone coming in and saving the day, but we don't often enough glamorize the people who do the hard work every day that allows us to live a comfortable life. And that is the part in the negative that I think so often gets avoided. We so often just hear the police say, oh, I was scared for my life, or the IDF soldiers say, oh, I was scared for my life, and so I had to act in order to save my life. And that's a fine argument right there in and of itself in a vacuum. Yeah, you know, if you're genuinely scared for your life, you're the only one who knows that. And hell, like, I want you to get home to your family today too, man. Like, I get it. But what then gets ignored is all of the tiny decisions that person made leading up to that moment that required him to be in a position where his life might even be threatened. Like I said earlier, like, why were the IDF soldiers anywhere close to this caravan? That doesn't make any sense. There's not a single rational thought that you could go, yeah, no, it makes sense for the soldiers with the guns to be by the ravenous horde who is starving and is trying to get to this food. It doesn't make any sense. You're only creating a situation where someone is probably going to die. And so I'm sorry, I don't care if you were scared for your life. You shouldn't have been there. You're the one who decided to carry a gun into a war zone. That's on you. You have a higher level of duty of care to these people who you are trying to feed than you do to yourself in that moment.
Yeah, they don't. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say you're also a soldier, like
yeah.
At least
also,
culturally, you're supposed to be like the bravest among us, right? Like I feel like you shouldn't scare easier than I would. You know, I'm just some fucking dude.
Yeah, it's it's so true, because that's what's so infuriating, especially when you hear like, oh, my life was in danger, so I acted because, you know, a guy was removing his wallet from, you know, the glove box or whatever. And it's like, okay, so you are the guys who are trained to be in these tense, difficult life or death situations. This is what you fucking signed up for. All right. You know the deal going into this, and you're expecting a civilian who may have never even seen a gun in his life to react, you know, calmly, rationally, and logically with you, not even just pointing a gun at them, but just, with your hand on it, looking at them the entire thing. It's terrifying. And so, like, and the cops are like, the cops or the IDF or any military force that acts this way. Like you said, they're continually on edge. And I think, Gage, you mentioned about the guy with the acorn dropping. Hilarious video. Hilarious video.
So good.
Not hilarious. The guy got shot at. Thank God he was okay and everything. I don't think he got hit, which doesn't say much for the cop either. But
he didn't, which is amazing.
He didn't get hit. He didn't get hit at all. He was a guy handcuffed in a vehicle, and you can't hit him. And
two cops shooting at him.
What I love is that he was doing like barrel rolls in the street and everything. You see that with the camera? Like the guy's just flipping.
Yes.
Like he's an action movie. It's like, what is that part of your training? That's very weird.
He screamed, "I'm hit! No, you aren't."
It's very funny. Very funny.
And to wrap up this segment, it really is insane how easily we've been able to just interchangeably talk about the IDF and American cops. Like it is the same thing. And as you mentioned, I believe Jeremy mentioned earlier, like they do cross training. Like the NYPD trains with the IDF. Like it is all the same thing. And that's why we're able to just so casually see the patterns, the parallels between the behavior of the IDF and the NYPD, because it's the same fucking people. In fact, probably there was probably some Jewish NYPD police officers who moved to Israel and just kept doing the same shit. Like it is genuinely these problems that we talk about on the left. One of the reasons it's hard for us to concentrate on any one of them is because they're all tied together. The factors, the philosophies, the teachings, the ideologies that cause cops in America to needlessly kill thousands of Americans are the same ideologies, the same thought processes that cause IDF troops to kill thousands more, Gazans or West Bankers or whoever. And it's all the same. It really, the more you look at it, the more you realize how closely related all of these things are.
Damn, that's crazy. I would love to see the data on the NYPD officer to West Bank settler pipeline. It's got to be crazy.
Oh, I got to look for that now. That'll be a hit.
or the other way around too, right? Like they're from Israel. They served in the IDF because it's mandatory there, and then they moved to New York and become police officers. Got to see that pipeline.
Which
you're
going to
see Gal Gadot join up with the NYPD?
Oh my God. Yeah, that'll be a movie. That'll definitely be a movie. All right, so if you're a regular viewer of the show and you regularly make it to the end of the episodes, you know what I'm about to say. This is the part where I tell you to subscribe and like if you haven't already, and tell you that we appreciate you for making it this far, because it's true. We really do. It helps out the algorithm a bunch. What also helps out the algorithm is having excellent guests like our wonderful guest today, who I won't even tell you who they are. If you guys don't know, they can tell you. Jeremy, who the hell are you? Where can people find you?
I'm Jeremy. This is Gage somewhere on the screen.
Woo,
I don't know, somewhere around here. We're from Head in the Office. You can just look us up on any platform, Head in the Office. We're on TikTok. That's our most prominent platform. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can find us just about everywhere. We post clips. We post full episodes on various platforms. Head in the Office, all platforms.
It's a great time. I highly recommend the show.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. We appreciate it. We appreciate you guys watching as well. You've had this great opportunity to watch 4 incredibly intelligent and articulate and handsome men. One is a little more, handsome than the others, I won't say, but check out the Head in the Office podcast. We really recommend it. And if you're wondering what Head in the Office stands for, it doesn't stand for that, you freaking perv. Stop it. Just go ahead and watch the show. You'll enjoy it, I promise.